Chapter 6. Blood was a mustang in her veins as she ran. She could no longer feel pain in her leg. The only reminder she'd even been shot, and the faint snarl in the back of her mind, telling her to run faster. She tried, but fell short. Her body simply would not allow it. Traffic clogged the bridge. The cars pressed bumper to bumper. Once they began sprinting through the traffic, and the bullets began to shatter windshields, people began abandoning their cars, running foolishly back towards the oncoming line of cops. They were smart enough to know who the bad guys were, however, and not a single soul fled in the same direction as the carriers. A man ran by Shay, roughly shoving her out of his way and onto the hood of an abandoned vehicle. "Dumbass teenager," he muttered under his breath, continuing on to run the other way. Stunned, she remained where she was, watching the man flee with wide eyes. She had yet to meet a person who would shove a young girl out of the way for his own sake. People do bad things in a panic. You shot 2 guys. Douchebag, Carson muttered as he trotted his way back over to her. He'd been several cars ahead of her, most likely stopping when he'd heard the thud of her body hitting the car. "Here, unlike me, that guy. Let me be a gentleman and offer you my assistance," he said, grinning as he extended his hand to her. She took it gratefully as he assisted her in getting back on her feet. She said, glancing in the direction he'd run off. Strangely, she found him doubled over, his elbow across his face. It almost looked like he was coughing. The realization hit her like a speeding train, causing her legs to wobble and dark eyes growing wide. "What is it?" Carson asked, taking a protective step in front of her. Ever since she saw the wound on her leg, something seemed on edge about him, more so than the situation called for. There was something else there, directed entirely at her. Maybe the close call had stirred something within him, the realization that he could lose her. "It's transferred by touch. That guy touched me. Oh, God," she said, falling back on the hood so her legs wouldn't collapse beneath her. Was this what Cassie felt? The terrible, horrifying realization that she just infected someone with something sure to bring them death. It wasn't even her fault. That being said, Cassie never intended to infect Noah, but she herself hadn't reached out and brushed her skin with him. He shoved me. It wasn't my fault. Thinking such things provided no comfort. She noticed his eyes travel toward the man before returning their best on her. He didn't need to say anything. Nothing could be said. She'd essentially just killed a man. The 2 officers she just shot in the foot were a different story. She did it in a matter of self-defense, and they didn't die. Unless this man was immune or a carrier, which she doubted, she had just sealed his fate with a touch of her skin. Monsters were capable of that, not humans. The first gunshot she heard in several minutes ripped through the air. Glass exploded somewhere near her. Screaming in terror, she clasped her hands protectively over her head and ears as she slipped off the hood and crashed to the ground. Carson protectively wrapped his arms around her. He buried his face in his shoulder, relaxing when the gunfire stopped. "Are you all right? Were you hit?" he asked as he took her face in his hands, pulling her away from his shoulder. She struggled to make eye contact with him. His brown eyes, he'd always been complimented on, no longer looked innocent and attractive. The rings that now encased his pupils horrified her, an emblem of what they now were. Her reflection, which she could see clearly in his eyes, did not resemble the same shade she'd been peering into the mirror 3 hours ago. She looked dirty, beaten and horrified, a shell of the well-groomed girl she usually resembled. "No, I'm all right," she croaked, trying to bury her face in the back in his shoulder, but he held her there, gazing into her eyes. "Come on, we need to move," he said sternly. "Carson, no, I can't do this," she said weakly, feeling tears brimming in her eyes. She rarely cried. It wasn't something she made a habit of doing. It took a lot to bring Shay to tears, yet there was something she was struggling to keep herself together in her boyfriend's arms. The place most girls her age felt the safest. "He's never even seen me cry, damn it. Pull yourself together." He used his thumb to brush away a smear of dirt on her cheek. "Yes, you can, Shay. I know you have it in you." She shook her head violently, freeing herself from his hands and returning her face to his shoulder, shielding herself from the chaos all around. She wasn't sure how much more she could take. Her entire world was crashing around her, her old life set ablaze. There was no home here anymore. The city she'd grown up in had only death left to offer. "We can't stay here forever," he whispered into her ear. "Pretty soon they'll stop missing." As much as she hated to admit it, he was right on. Eventually they'd stop hitting cars. They'd killed one of them today. Eventually a bullet would strike its target. And currently, she and Carson were the easiest ones to hone in on. They were sitting ducks. "I can't do this. I can't infect people. I'm not capable of ending lives." "That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to stand up and be strong. I know you can do that," he replied, the look in his eyes serious as the tone of his voice. She knew better than to argue, for his words were perfectly accurate. She was being foolish and stubborn, arguing for the sake of arguing. "I don't want to. If I do what you want, you say, I'll have to infect someone," she cried softly. He brushed away the tear with one hand, lips pursed into a fine line. He took care of a few stray blonde hairs with a free one, brushing them behind her ear. "No, you won't. You don't know what's going to happen. But if you don't get up and run, we both know what'll happen to both of us. I'm not leaving you here. But if you stay, do you want that on your hands? Your blood and mine?" "Cassie's blood is already on my hands." "Her death wasn't your fault," he replied softly. "No, her blood is literally on my hands. But figuratively speaking, yeah, her blood is on my hands, and so is that guy's. And I'm not ready to do that." He wasn't talking about 2 people. He was talking about billions. The window of the car exploded above them. Glass rained down and adrenaline shot through her veins. Carson did the same, and the two were running again, weaving their way through clusters of cars and streams of people fleeing in the opposite direction. She heard another gunshot and picked up the pace, trying to shut out the screams that followed. Carson pulled her to the side as a group of people rushed past, her shoulders spaces away from checking a young girl in the face. The couple took a moment to stop and catch their breath. Shay leaning against an empty pickup truck. The relieved weight off her leg was welcomed, her injury thinking her with reduced pain. "Even if we make it to the other side, we have 2 dilemmas," she said between inhales. "We don't have a car to get us away, and I'm not even sure there's a car big enough for all of us. Then, even if we manage to get a car and get away, there'd be nothing stopping the cops from shooting us. Except for maybe what's inside that U-Haul over there," Carson responded. She looked up to see the back of the medium-sized moving truck, brand declared by the logo on the back. Confused at first, she allowed her eyes to wander. What did he see in that thing? "Does the virus suddenly allow X-ray vision?" she murmured. She saw nothing of potential in that beat-up moving truck. Rolling his eyes, Carson made his way over to the truck, eyes skirting the bridge for some officers. Guns hadn't sounded for a few minutes now. Maybe they'd given up trying to find them and the people. She could only hope they did. She followed him cautiously, muscles bunching every time a person sprinted past. She never knew when they'd be forced to bolt again. "What does that look like to you?" he remarked, a cocky edge to his tone. He scooped up something in his hand before twirling it in his fingers. It was a strap of some kind, but to what she wasn't sure. Backpack? Water bottle carrier, maybe? Or a gun? "It looks like a gun strap," she said, looking over her shoulder. She could make out the black uniforms of the officers in the distance, pushing against the thinning people. They were wasting time now. Before long, the cops would be on them, guns ready. "Well, let's check," he replied. He fastened his hands on the handle and pulled, setting the door rolling up. She had to help him at first, stopping when they managed to get it most of the way up. "Holy shit," she muttered. "Looks like someone never stopped preparing for the zombie apocalypse," Carson snickered. She looked at him and grinned briefly, although the moment didn't feel right to crack a joke. She found out he had an impeccable gift for sarcasm in the worst times. It did appear that someone had been stocking up for an apocalypse. Cardboard boxes lined the walls, each labeled with the names of their contents. She opened the box nearest to her, finding 3 M16s stored inside. She raised an eyebrow, carefully withdrawing one from the box. She set it down, observing it. The gun appeared to be new, black metal glistening and shiny. A sleeping bag was still on the floor, flashlight off to the left of it. Someone had been camping in here. Carson picked up the gun, examining it. "Check the safety," she warned him. He shot a quizzical glance before running his hands along the black metal. "The what?" he replied. "The safety," she told him, her tone hard. It was easy to forget that not everyone had a father who took him to the shooting range and hid guns all over the house. But come on. He didn't even know what a safety was. He might as well shoot his own eye out. "I can't find it. Maybe machine guns don't come with one?" he replied blankly, still searching the gun for the switch. "Give it to me," she barked, taking it carefully out of his hands, careful not to point the barrel at anyone at his direction. She found the safety quick and checked to make sure it was on. "Alright, you see this thing right here?" she said as she pointed it to the switch. "Before you pull the gun, make sure this is on. Don't put it on fire or auto until you're ready to shoot. And don't point it at anyone you don't intend to put a bullet in." "If anyone should be teaching Guns 101, it's me, not you," a female voice mocked, sarcasm laced within her tone. She turned around to see Marina, her arms folded across her chest, and a humored grin etched into her features. Standing behind her was the entire band. Katrina, Owen, Kylie, JC, and Lelia. Everyone was alive. Albeit, not all of them looked alive, unharmed. Owen especially, but they were alive. Alive seemed to be a valid substitute for unharmed, given the circumstances of the situation. "I was trying to keep him from hurting himself," she shot back. Carson rolled his eyes and muttered, something inaudible under his breath. Marina strode up beside her, taking a few moments to take in everything she found upon peering inside. Without hesitation, she reached in and scooped up another weapon from the box, checking the safety before. "These are definitely real," she said very curtly, as if she was a teacher instructing a class. "Captain Obvious strikes again," Shay remarked lowly. Marina rolled her eyes before looking over her shoulder. "Okay, so we need to make it impossible for these guys to follow us. Any suggestions?" "Blow a hole in the bridge?" Katrina spoke up. All head snapped in her direction, looks and surprise in their faces. She rolled her eyes and let out a quick, "Fine then, maybe blowing up a car and scaring them off." "What is it with you and blowing things up?" she said, her eyebrows raised in curiosity. "Well, we could either make the bridge impassable or kill all the cops. I don't think we want to do the second one," she replied defensively. "Nobody wants to blow a hole in the city's most expensive bridge either," Carson spoke up, still examining the weapon in his hands as if he was a child on Christmas. Everyone who voiced a part in this conversation had a point. Blowing a hole in the bridge wasn't an option, and neither was killing all the cops. She wouldn't settle for it even if there was a chance her father was among them. Turning around to face Marina, she found the girl had climbed her way inside the back of the truck, thumbing through boxes. She went through several before retrieving a can of gasoline and a box of matches. Eyeing her warily, she scooted her way backwards as Marina slipped out of the back, gasoline swishing around the red canister. What kind of dangerous idea did Katrina get drilled in her head? She can't be considering torching something. She's not that much of a pyro. "What are you doing?" she asked her, staring at her as she walked back in the direction they'd come. She stopped about 20 feet, reaching a patch of relatively open ground. "Well, they can't walk through fire, can they?" Marina responded, popping the lid off the canister and spilling some gas on the street. The idea was more controlled than blowing a hole 10 tons of concrete, so she went with it. The amount of time they'd have to escape would be smaller than a more drastic option, but they weren't looking for drastic. They just wanted to escape with their lives and limbs intact. Marina made a few laps across the width of the bridge, dumping out the gas until the canister puked out the final drop. The officers were closing in, their guns poised to open fire. Marina was running out of time to set her plan on fire. Do it now, Marina, she said, her eyes jumping from the cops to Marina and back again. The situation had a lot of potential to go from bad to worse in the blink of an eye, and they needed to act now before someone got killed. It would be a matter of time before bullets started flying. Marina seemed hesitant at first as she doubted her own idea, but struck a match and threw it to the gasoline. Moments later, the flames instantly shot up, zooming across the line of liquid like it was a competition. It only took a few moments for the flames to grow, reaching for the sky with tendrils of orange. Surprised shouts floated through the air as the flames continued to grow. Every once in a while, the face would flicker to the other side of the orange wall, gazing on with shocked expressions. Meanwhile, the carriers had gathered, bunching together to take in the damage. A handful of pillars of smoke rose from the streets of the city, thick and dark against the overcast sky. Car alarms wailed and shouts filled the streets, the reek of smoke, gasoline, and blood strong in the air. "Oh, God," Shay whispered as Carson folded tightly into his chest, wrapping his arm around her waist. Alongside everyone else, they gazed at it, dumbfounded and unable to utter another word. The lyrics to a song of hers played over and over again in her mind, the only words that pushed through the haze that was her current mental state. Let's watch this city burn. Let's watch this city burn the world.